Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jesse. I think this is one of the most interesting topics that we're facing at the moment in the kingdom and across the region as we build more and more conservation projects. We link that into hospitality, and it's really a whole new segment and sector as we attract more tourists, more visitors, and open more projects and experiences for our residents here in the kingdom. So it's a pleasure to introduce our illustrious panel, who I think are going to give us very grounded, practical thoughts and experiences from what they've done on the ground and how that translates into the future of this sector in Saudi. So may I introduce, first of all, Natasha Martin, Director of Visitor Experience at NEOM Nature Reserve. Waleed Abualnadi, Commercial Director at Saudi Icon. Hussam Alhuzaimi, CEO of Evolve Hospitality and Advisory. And Joe Tabet, the founder and architect at JT & Partners. So this has been a really engaging conversation as the panel has started to build our engagement, and the conversations went in lots of interesting directions, and I think we could probably keep you here for hours talking about the nuances of nature conservation and destination planning. For us, as we work with many of the large destinations and the smaller ones as they're coming up, the thinking of how you integrate this in a sophisticated, thoughtful manner that really takes into account all of the different stakeholders across the board, visitors, residents, conservation pillars, has really been something central to what we're seeing evolve in the kingdom. And I think this is no longer a vision. We have track record, we have experience, we have lessons learned, and it's a pleasure to, I think, discuss those today. Perhaps one of the most amazing projects that I think really has some legs in the kingdom at the moment is the efforts of the Nature Reserve and NEOM. So many people, I think, externally of the kingdom think about the line, they think about, big picture, big vision, sweeping statements, but the practicalities and the realities of I think, what we've achieved at NEOM within the Nature Reserve is really spectacular. So, Natasha, give us a little bit of, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, how has this really been integrated into results and into the thinking of how NEOM started to integrate nature into its master plan?
Thanks, Ben. Good morning, everybody. Sabah al-khair. So I'm Natasha. I'm the Director of Visitor Experience at the NEOM Nature Reserve, as Ben said. And I think, we hear a lot about NEOM and we see these amazing images, but I think one of the most exciting things about NEOM is this commitment that we've made to protect 95% of NEOM for nature. So at the Nature Reserve, our job is to not just protect that 95%, but also to restore it. And so I'm really proud to share with you some of our successes that we've had with rewilding and regreening. So when you ask about what's going well, it's been this 3 years of restoration work. We've planted almost 5 million trees, grubs, and seeds in the reserve. So we actually see this we're combating desertification. You can see the desert turning green. And we also have a massive rewilding project. So we have over 1,200 animals. We have ostriches, we have ibex, we have oryx. It's really exciting to see. But what that also creates is a really appealing tourism destination. And so right now, we have laid the foundation for, I think, what's going to be one of the best conservation stories ever told. We've laid the foundation for this really appealing tourism destination. And we're in the phase of really planning to how can we ensure that our tourism is enhancing conservation, that our tourism is a tool for conservation. So this is about destination management. It's about controlling access. But it's also thinking about the people. What do people want? How are the trends changing? And what are the experiences that we can create that are matching the market demand? So this is the phase that we're at, really planning. We've laid the foundation, we're at planning, and now it's about making sure these frameworks are in place to ensure we have experiences that people want to come experience.
And perhaps that's the most interesting question kind of coming out of that, is what I'm hearing across this conference in the last few days, but also more generally, is we're worried about how we make sure that we're competitive as a tourism destination, be that a small part of it like NEOM or the kingdom in general. How do we fight for guests? How do we make sure they come to us, not to Kenya, to Paris, to London, to New York, to Hong Kong? That's the key question. So that differentiation when it comes to being able to answer that question, I think is really critical. Hussam, your experience has been highly diverse, CEO of the Saudi Falcon Club, working in hospitality and advisory across many of the big tourism projects in the kingdom. How do you see us thoughtfully combining all of these different elements which we need to put together, all of these different verticals, to make that destination planning compelling and successful in the long term for Saudi?
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, it's a really burning topic at the moment of a destination of tourism. There is a UN biodiversity framework that has been done in 2022. And that framework clearly states that tourism destinations and also tourism operators need to align with protecting the land by 30% by 2030. And this is a goal. And we are part of this alignment in all the verticals of the tourism destination. So conservation, biodiversity is on top of the tier. And what comes later on is the operation and also the culture and understanding the biodiversity of that location.
Joe, you've introduced, I've seen you on a few panels this week, and as we talked, one of the things you said, one of your key things is disruption. In this sector, a lot of our conversations, disruption actually seemed to be, the goal was long-term stability. When we're doing these projects, whether it's a long-term vision on conservation, when we're thinking about sustainability, we're thinking about master planning, it really is how do we future-proof it. So from your perspective, Natasha's laying the groundwork, Hussam's starting to bring all these different elements together. How are you thinking long-term to make sure that these destinations are interesting and competitive for our visitors, our residents, our children in the long term?
Thank you, Ben. It's the most difficult question because I believe that what they're saying about and all the conference is the foundation that you discuss about. And our job as designers and architects is to deliver the vision. But at the same time, where the struggle is, that any project that we're building at the moment is going to be there for the next 50 years. So there is another 2 generations that they're going to come after us, that they're going to use the projects. So for us to really protect the future of any project is we're trying to understand the next generation mindset. And this is where the challenge is, because at the moment, our generation is putting the concept and the ideas. We have developers from our generation that they have a vision, that they have numbers. But what we are building, we're building projects for the future. And these projects, mainly, they're going to be used by the next 2 generations. And this is where we're doing research on design and psychology and really understanding the technology where it's taking us. The big question, will the next guest in hospitality, which is the next generations, they will enjoy our current projects? Will their mindset be accepting what we're doing at the moment? And this is, I believe, is very difficult for us because we are the generation that we had to experience the mobile and experience the talkie-walkie and experience this old phone landline that we call you turn it by hand. So our generation is struggling to really understand. We're that transition. So this is where I believe we are in a place where we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about flying cars, but we don't have rules and regulation. And this is the other issue is we discussed about is the authority requirement and guidelines. If you really need to push the bar, you really need to change the mindset of the authorities' approval and guidelines. So I've been in GCC for 25 years, and we're still designing buildings, I'm not going to say only hotels, based on same guidelines, construction guidelines. So if you're going to tell me we're going to use flying cars in the next 10 years, we're not ready. There is no infrastructure ready for flying cars. If you really want it to be ready in 10 years, you need to start today. And then it will follow beyond flying cars and technology and.
So how do we make our conservations not the mini disc of tourism for the upcoming years? I think that's a great reflection. I think also this is the idea of how do we think about these things. When we're thinking about policy, we're thinking about regulation. As a highly centralized administration with very diverse regions, regional development authorities, strategy offices, city management, regional management, this is still something which is very much in flux. You know, I always think about Saudi as we're iterating every single level of our policy and regulation and government. And this is maybe one of the areas which is most challenging because you have really extreme poles. Conservation, all about animals, all about land, but on the other hand, how do we really start thinking about people, and is there a one-size-fits-all for a conservation approach to tourism in the kingdom? So touching on people, I think this is something which has been a topic which all of the panelists have touched on. How do we make this human? Where do the people fit in this? How do we take a people-first approach to those experiences, to that soft touch, and create that balance? Waleed, I know that your firm, from a city context, is really looking at how you put in those new thinking on sustainability and start delivering that from a people-first approach. And when it comes to that, how do you start thinking about that to make sure you're working towards Joe's future-proofing?
First of all, good morning and assalamu alaikum. The co-panelists hit all the major terms right on the head. Sustainability, looking at the future with purpose and planning. And this is where Saudi Icon comes into creating that sustainability in each and every part of our projects. It starts with the people. We've invested heavily in our people. We have now more than 3,000 sponsored employees, all trained around sustainability with sustainability principles. We've grown into a new group called the Unicorn Group. This group includes a number of specialized contractors, each with the idea of excellence, sustainability in their purpose. This is what we're planning to do at Unicon, bring sustainability to the forefront of everything that we do. We've executed two of the major hospitality and workspace projects recently, the new Murabba headquarters and the Four Seasons Hotel in Triple Bay with Amala. And to be able to execute these projects, which are platinum, gold and platinum lead projects, you need the know-how, you need the experience, you need the training. The number of lead APs at our company are increasing day by day. So investing in the most important tool for sustainability, which is the human capital, is all what we're about. We've developed also a sustainability department with the word culture, which was repeated here. It was repeated here multiple times. Culture, mindset. Sustainability is not just a checkbox for us. It's not just a list of regulations. It's a mindset. So when we develop a project, when we're brought on board to develop a project, our idea is to lobby for and champion sustainability principles. Joe just talked about the local regulations. Yes, everything can be improved. However, we have international standards, like the LEED standard. And this is something we've developed and incorporated into the way we do things at Saudi Icon and the Unicorn Group at large.
So, Waleed, what I'm taking away from that, again, is this idea of network. It's about how do we start thinking about this strategically and realize you move one piece on the board when it comes to conservation and these kind of pictures, and it really reshapes it. Hussam, we've been talking about this. I see you jumping in. Yes. How does that fit in your thinking?
I just want to comment on sustainability. It's all about the people. You know, you need to have the culture activated in that organization. But there's something on top of sustainability, which is regenerative tourism, which comes on top of sustainability, which is connecting with the communities, empowering the communities in that destination. This is where things change better for that destination in terms of having a tourism destination with a conservation part, which is regenerative tourism, empower the local communities, wildlife development, and using tech and wildlife, which is to monitor. And I'm sure Natasha knows a lot about it. We worked in a previous project with NEOM in the past in my different career. And without technology, we cannot understand the environment. And technology gives real fact and real data in order to improve and develop.
So, Natasha, here's a question.
Yes.
Why is, one question and then please jump in. Why do you think we're setting up destinations that are more compelling than other places in the world?
I think, I mean, besides the insane natural and cultural assets that we have, right? When we're planning our destinations in Saudi, we have an opportunity that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world to sort of unify this ecosystem. And what I wanted to just add on to what Hussam said is this idea of regenerative tourism, which is, of course is a buzzword that people are throwing around, but we really have the ability to do it here because we are able to sort of unify this ecosystem where we have access to these incredible assets, we have access to the world's best delivery partners, we have the ability to bring it all together. Absolutely. In NEOM, we're super lucky, no legacy systems, and to sort of build it all in a way that works. And we use this framework that we call the conservation economy, which is sort of, this economy that, so we, invest in conservation, which creates great experiences, better experiences, more people, able to raise the prices. And so it's this virtuous circle that creates this, really delivering regenerative tourism on the ground. And I think that's good for nature and it's great for our tourists and our residents. But I think it's this ability, this opportunity we have to have this unified system that really makes a difference for us.
And also I want to add something as well. There was a project that we led. We're an advisory company. We do advisory in hospitality and we develop, we do high best use also studies. And there was this mandate of a private company who has a piece of land in Wadi Hanifa. So what we did, the team and I, we had said not just any place in Wadi Hanifa. It's a bit far from Diriyah. It's up on the east part. And we studied not just only in Wadi Hanifa, what is that particular wadi? It was Wadi Ubair in Wadi Hanifa. So we went and we went to the culture and heritage about Wadi Ubair, what the gardens around, what they wanted to sell. So they were very fond in vegetables and this. And we want to bring this alive because this is also part of the culture, part of the heritage of that area. So we studied the landscape and we built a foundation of the design of that property, which is a resort. And we, with the designer, but without these data, designers cannot thrive. So this is just an example of, it's very important to understand the location and the land and the wildlife and the conservation of it.
Look, just on what he just mentioned, forever, whenever we're designing any building, it's a hotel or anything else, you take into consideration the location and the surrounding, and you try to come up with something that will stitch to the surrounding. But this is from one hand. On the other hand, you have the guest, you have the end user of the project. And this is where you really need to create something that will be suitable for the end user. So it's two. It's the location and the end user. And this is where I don't want anybody to panic about what I mentioned before, but with the technology at the moment, we have a lot of softwares and with AI where you can understand the guest behavior. And all of us, I believe most of us now, every day we talk to ChatGPT. Every day. We get the doctor results, blood results, we give it to ChatGPT. ChatGPT will start telling you which medication and stuff like that. So imagine this technology is gonna tell us in advance the guest experience and behavior that's gonna be in 20 years for the next generation. And this is something very important. So the location, we cannot ignore it. To have something stitched to a wadi or in the middle of a city or whatever, it's gonna be always there. But at the end, the big change that is happening is the end user mentality. That's the one that we are not able to control. The land you will control, but us, we are uncontrollable species.
So maybe, I agree with you on that, but maybe not uncontrollable, but let's talk a little bit about the changing consumer and who's touching nature and conservation in a different way. My favorite piece of so many of my Saudi friends during COVID, they couldn't travel and they went, oh my goodness, there's amazing things in my own country I never knew. And so many people who had never gone outside of Riyadh, they had always traveled outside of the kingdom for leisure, suddenly started engaging in all of these different parts of the kingdom, which was a huge shift. what we're also seeing, if you look at demographics coming into the region, is we're seeing much more Indian tourists, we're seeing Asian tourists, we're seeing Chinese tourists, who perhaps don't have the same exposure to nature as you might see from other pieces. So it's not only the changing mentality, but how do we support people to start learning to have that experience? Natasha, like, how are you starting to think about, it's not, I wouldn't say education, but how do you create that accessibility to nature for people that maybe are not initially seeking it out?
Yeah, it's a great question and something that we think about a lot. And just to share an anecdote, we have one of our first products is like a little self-drive safari in the reserve where people can come and they can enter the reserve and drive around. And we sort of opened it without any fanfare, just wanted to make it available. And on the first day, 8,000 people showed up. And so it kind of blew my expectations, but this interest to see the rewilding, the regreening in, with your own eyes is really, really strong. And I think that our job is really to try to create these experiences that are accessible. And we do that by asking people what they feel comfortable with and then pushing them a little bit further. So for example, having campsites, but with facilities, for example, instead of wild camping. So for me, it's really about the research, making sure we understand what the customer wants and then trying to integrate little elements that would create little moments of meaningfulness, little moments of transformation that we see in more advanced sort of nature-based destinations, so learning from them as well. But we see the demand is there. I mean, we see it every day in our reserve. We had to cap the number of vehicles, which was really exciting for us. So the demand is definitely growing.
So to keep on the people theme, Waleed, we talked a lot about a lot of what you do and a lot of how you're starting to think about this as the back office of tourism, the back office of conservation. How are you starting to think about how we also support the infrastructure we're going to need for kind of mid-level, senior level, the staffing, the thinking around that to make sure that these are sustainable in the long term as viable economic projects?
Exactly like Natasha said, the demand is growing and it keeps growing. And if you look at the number from the previous presentation, you can see that the target is 150 million people coming to Saudi Arabia. How can you build the infrastructure or the projects that would bring these 150 million people to Saudi? That's a big undertaking, and that's a lot of back office. And the idea, the concept of before they launch these projects, they must first land, is the thought, the bubble, the bulb lighting in our heads, going like, there must be something. There must be something that we can do to help them launch their projects. And this gave birth to two concepts, major concepts, the most recent developments in the Unicon Group, two brands, Perform and Stayform. Stayform is a short-term accommodation, a vertically integrated community-first housing for executives and professionals. It's biophilic, it's extremely architecturally well-designed to be elevated with elevated designs and look and feel. A lot of mix of indoor and outdoor spaces.
Connecting with nature.
Exactly, connecting with nature. Keeping that sustainability within the back office infrastructure. And also, the other brand is Perform, which is a flexible workspace platform, which is tech-enabled. It's going to offer built-to-suit or ready-to-use, or even virtual offices for companies that are looking for zero space or minimal space in the workspace. These two brands lend themselves to sustainability, to comfort first for the people which are executing this vision. The vision is unshakable. It's not, we believe in it. But the people that are coming to execute this vision, they run through transient phases. So making them feel at home, making them feel comfortable, streamlining their business and professional lives, it's a big market. And we're taking the first step in making sure they're feeling right at home. We're not thinking just about the end user. There's a person before the end user executing this project, this major development that we're making it feel right at home.
Hussam,
I fully agree.
Yeah, if I can pick up on something you said earlier, the culture and heritage. One of the things that I always try and remind people of is, this region has always been actually at the forefront of sustainability. Because if we didn't, there wouldn't be anybody here. There's thousands of years of sustainable practices that have built the societies that we see now, which have now taken a different route. for you, when you're looking at project creation, project development, thoughtful planning, what are those principles that you're really trying to ensure that we deliver that you think are going to make this a success?
Yeah, there's a standard we work on. It's just that it's a culture. Before we do any site assessment of a location and we try to pitch our client about it, we tell them, look, the new generation, the new traveler is looking for some way to connect with nature, some way to connect with culture, something to connect with heritage. When you get these things done right from the beginning in your design and your concept phase, which we call phase 0, when we start designing the concept and the philosophy, when you connect the travel to nature and culture and heritage in that local specific area, then you will build up a great, unique destination and a property. Yes.
I want to add one thing into that. Imagine making the people that are building these projects feel right at home, giving them a part of the Saudi hospitality, the Arab
experience
hospitality.
as well.
Exactly.
They learn something new.
So part of what we do as well is giving them a very customized concierge service, for example, that would take care of their every need, from stocking their fridge to giving them, for example, support in their business endeavors. A market guru concierge service, making them really feel at home. Imagine the people building these projects getting a taste early on of what they're going to provide for the end user. This is really, we believe, a step in the right direction.
So as we start to look at the wider picture of Saudi, I think we always talk a lot about the cities, we talk a lot about the big projects that we've all are intimately familiar with. There's so many other parts of Saudi that are starting to activate, from Hassa to Taif to so many different parts of the kingdom. If we look back with a practical lens, as we said, we've now got an awful lot of experience on this panel from multiple different facets. What is the biggest hurdle you see for their success, and how can they avoid falling into some of the pitfalls that maybe you've seen here or in other parts of your work around the world? Joe.
I believe that from my perspective as a hospitality specialist, moving on, I keep talking about the future, but moving on is the change, it will happen on the number of staff that they will be serving the hotel. When you were talking about efficiency, so with the technology that is coming, the question is, do you really need that much number of staff at the same time so you can provide them with all this accommodation and? This is where things will change, and we can feel it started changing. We have a project that we developed in Seychelles. It's been up running for the last 4 years. And one of the major problems is the cost of running the hotel from a staff perspective. So the technology is going to help surely and clearly to reduce the number of staff, and then your room service, it might appear in your room without seeing anybody. And this is where I believe that the things will change and efficiency will change, the focus on the guest experience will change, and the concept of hospitality, in my humble opinion, it has to change in the next 10 years, because so far we are still conventional. So one of the projects in Abu Dhabi that it's already under construction with Hilton is LXR. It's an island. We managed with the operator to eliminate the all-day dining. And then we merged it with the beach club. And this is where they felt the efficiency. It's a small change, but when you look at your numbers and when you look at the efficiency, and this is where it's going to move. I believe that the more we are in the technology, the more we're going to use it for the efficiency and the revenue of the projects at the same time.
So perhaps summing up that more connection, less ironing, is that what we're doing? I know we're really tight on time, so perhaps just to kind of wrap this up, what I'm taking away from all of you is this idea of this is practical steps. Sustainability, nature, conservation aren't just big words and big visions. It's how do you integrate them, and how do you build systems that make all of these multiple different parts work together that might be slightly more tricky than some of the other areas that we have in hospitality. I know we're really tight on time, but if anybody has one last final word, the stage is yours. If not, thank you so much. I hope this has given you a snapshot and some food for thought as you continue to integrate conservation, nature, and sustainability into your own projects. And we look very much forward to the projects all of you are doing and their success. Please join me in thanking our panel.